I
my
mean,
God.
if you want to
love
talk about crazy, stupid production stuff, we're going to get into that today.
Oh,
because-
yes.
Okay, yes, I was about to lead. No, but speaking of reverse footage, I noticed a lot of reverse footage in our movie this week.
I
Oh,
agree.
yeah.
I also noticed that. Yeah.
Me too.
Enough of the build up. Ronan, do you want to introduce what we watched this week?
Yeah, I decided when Parvati asked me to pick a movie for your podcast, I had a lot of choices because I wanted to make sure I could pick something that was different. So I wasn't talking about how much I liked La La Land, which is a movie I love, but I wanted to make sure to pick something that maybe you guys hadn't seen. And I assumed none of you had seen this movie prior to.
Nope.
None of us.
That is why I wanted to pick Bram Stoker's Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Francis Ford Coppola brings an undying legend to life. Dracula. Beware.
A film by
Yes.
Francis Ford Coppola, which he made, which is maybe one of his biggest hits of all time.
Sure, I didn't realize how much of a hit it was
Yeah,
until I
I
read up.
didn't-
on
This
it.
was a
neither
big
did I.
hit. This was a big hit in 1992. This movie was directed and produced by Francis Ford Coppola and was written by James V. Hart.
And
Who
Bram
apparently a friend, based on a book that no one has read, that everyone
What?
thinks
That's
they
not
know.
true. I read it.
Of course,
Oh, wow.
Stoker.
of
Have
course
you
you've
actually
read it,
read
Amber.
Bram Stoker's
have.
Dracula?
I was
Oh, wow.
really nerdy in middle school. Just saying. I didn't.
But
have
you
to-
haven't seen this movie?
No.
You hadn't watched Bram Stoker.
Interesting.
Well, Bram Stoker made this movie. I can't make that joke. That's such a dumb. But the reason I picked this movie for a variety of reasons, because I thought that clearly this is an interesting movie because there's so
Very
many.
true.
It's so. I mean,
So much.
part of it
So
is
much.
that it's from a famous director. Like, it's from the guy who made the Godfather movies. And this is a movie that also stars people who are still famous today. So it wouldn't be like, oh, let me pick a movie from the 80s that features this guy who was on a soap opera.
Yeah.
This movie stars Gary Oldman as
Yes.
Yes.
Dracula.
I love
And
him.
it stars Winona Ryder as,
Yes.
Mina.
as Mina Harker. It
Mhm.
stars in the most glorious... Can I swear on this podcast?
Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
Yeah.
go for
I just
it.
have to mark it as explicit.
the most
Ooh.
gloriously batshit performance of Anthony Hopkins
Oh yeah.
as Van Helsing, which is a
Mhm.
performance that I've loved for so long.
So good.
Before I even watched the movie, I knew I would love it. I don't know. I love Anthony Hopkins so much, and he gives like the most over the top, completely insane performance. And of course, it stars Keanu Reeves, who is
Oh yeah.
accidentally the most famous thing about this movie.
That's
Because-
true.
Because as the Wikipedia as the Wikipedia page says, it says Dracula was theatrically released in the United States on November 13th, 1992 to positive reviews, however, Keanu Reeves' performance and English accent received criticism.
Oh.
Oh.
And
Okay. I didn't notice it was that bad. It was fine.
My problem with Keanu in the movie is not his it's not his accent. I wouldn't point to that. It's just his character
Yeah.
in general. It's just
Clearly, JJ, you are not comfortable with how Keanu was cast as a beta. Clearly, in a movie.
That's a
he is
beta.
he is a simp in this movie, as they say nowadays.
Oh
He's a
my
soft
God.
boy.
He is a soft boy.
But I feel like okay, so this movie is. Where do you guys want to begin? Do you want to
Oh,
just
yeah.
talk about your
Yes,
general
well-
impressions, or should I fill in the context of this movie, like where it was in everyone's career and how it was received, and then we can get into your.
Well, we usually start with general impressions, then we go into
Mhm.
like categories about like our favorite performance and like favorite scene and least favorite performance and whatnot. But no, we could just give our like general takes. Like Ronan, like what's your general take? Like what are your thoughts
Yeah.
on the movie?
Share
Like,
with us.
I've always been fascinated with this movie even before I saw it because of how clearly just weird it is. This movie is. It was a Francis Ford Coppola movie who someone I like admired much more when I was younger. When I was like, oh, of course, he is one of the great directors,
Mhm.
clearly, because he made Apocalypse Now. But he's not one of my favorite directors, just because like I find him he's so loud in his movies sometimes. But this movie,
Yeah.
it works perfectly. I love this movie. I do love this movie. It is not like one of my favorite movies. I don't think it's a perfect movie. I think it has problems, most of which kind of revolves around the pacing. It is the shortest 2 hours ever, weirdly, for me.
I can
Um,
see that. I can
I
see
think-
that.
Rewatching it, I did not remember how good and how much I did love Winona Ryder's performance. I now officially have a crush on her, even though she is like my age.
Well, not then.
Yikes.
It wasn't then.
No, so it's
How old was
okay.
she then?
The movie came out in 92, and so she was
Was she at
No.
the height of her powers yet? She hadn't.
do you want to
done-
know how old she was? She was
How
Oh
old?
god, is she 17?
No, she was 21 when it came out,
Oh,
Okay.
which is surprising because that means
Wow.
she was like 18 or something when she would have
Whoa.
made Edward Scissorhands.
Whoa.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Damn. I love
But Gary
him.
Oldman was
I love Gary Oldman so much.
older,
Yeah.
not over a decade older,
Oh,
but
Okay.
Dracula. That kind of works because Dracula is like supposed to be.
Well,
Old.
Dracula's like
Well,
400 years old in the movie.
Dracula-
like
that's
500
still
years old.
disproportionate. though.
It is disproportionate.
No, he's old.
It is weird. I think Winona Ryder is like age appropriate because her character would have been that old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agree.
And I think casting like a 21-year-old soft boy as Dracula is a decision that they've tried many times since then. It is always stupid
It is.
Mhm.
It's fair.
because you have to have Dracula be like 400 years old at one point, and
Yeah, and it's hard to make it look like 400 years old if it's a 21-year-old soft
But-
boy.
yeah. This movie, I love it. Like I really do, and I really respect it for being such a bold and weird movie. And I really wish someone. The closest I think someone has gotten to recreating this type of movie since was Guillermo del Toro, who made Crimson Peak like 5 years ago, which is a movie absolutely no one saw.
Yeah. I've not
I've
seen
heard
Crimson
about it
Peak.
though.
Even though it is a very good movie. And I think this is a movie that, if it was released today, would probably be. If this was released today in 2020 as like a Christmas, like big budget release, I think. Let's just say that the TikTok videos in response to it would be a little aggressive.
People
I
doing
think
Renegade in
Oh my
the
God.
theaters.
Oh
Like,
god.
that's-
people would hate this movie.
I don't.
Viciously.
I don't think it would be. I don't know. Maybe I feel like it'd be more unique if it came out today. I feel like it'd be a breath of fresh air if it came out today.
Really?
I think it would definitely be super memeable, though.
Yes, it would definitely be much more memeable.
It has been memeable. Like, I think the one thing everyone makes fun of this movie is Dracula's butt hair when he's old, which is like, yeah, it looks stupid, but I think this movie makes so many bold choices in its, like, it won 3 Oscars. I don't know if anyone knew that. This was
No
nominated for
way.
4. It won 3. It won for Best Costume Design, Best Sound Editing, and Best Makeup. I think
Okay.
the costumes are among the best I've ever seen.
Oh,
in
they're
a
so
movie.
good.
Mhm.
They're so good. I
But yeah,
noticed
those are my thoughts. I love this movie. I think Keanu is. I can't imagine this movie without him anymore, almost, because like he is so famous now. Like he's
Mhm.
such a huge presence in 2020. Weirdly
Yeah.
enough, like he had this weird resurgence, and like he played himself in Always Be My Maybe, and he's John
Yeah.
Wick. So watching him in this, where he is not good.
that.
And he is equipped with awful, like horrible gray hair,
Yeah.
that kept graying as the movie went
Well,
on.
there's
Right.
one
Yeah.
scene in particular. There's one scene, the scene where they ambush. I feel like I'm talking too much, so maybe I'll bring this up later. But
No, go
um,
ahead. Bring up the ambush
Yeah.
scene.
I
the
like
scene where there's this lengthy, like, not quite a love scene, but almost a love scene between Gary Oldman and Winona Ryder, who, for the record, absolutely hated each other during the production of this.
Oh no,
Wow.
you hate to
Really?
see it.
And
You hate to
considering
see
how
it.
good their chemistry is, that's just how impressive
crazy. Yeah.
the
Wow.
movie
I
is.
did not know that.
But there's this scene where then they're ambushed by, I guess I'll say Van Helsing, Keanu, and the three bros. 'Cause there's just
The
a-
three
Yeah,
bros.
three
yeah.
bros.
This movie has like three awesome adventure bros.
They're
Which
so good.
I cannot express how much I love.
Who are all
the
simps, by the way.
All
No,
Oh
they're
my
all
god.
awesome. Like,
Stop.
They all wanted Lucy, right? Isn't that
one of them got him,
their intro? Yeah,
Yeah,
one
one
of
of them got him.
but one of them married her.
yes.
Also, I wonder, do all of you have thoughts about Lucy?
I love
Um,
Lucy.
Oh, that's- no.
But there's a scene where they ambush Mina and Dracula, and it is
Mhm.
very clear that it must have been a reshoot because suddenly Keanu Reeves has previously died. He had like someone put salt in his hair or whatever stupid
Yeah.
thing
Yeah,
they used to
yeah.
do. And suddenly it is this magnificent white wig. Like, it's
I didn't
clearly a
notice
wig
that.
with only
It was
this scene.
notably like whiter in that scene.
It was,
Yeah.
and it must
That's
have been a
funny.
reshoot. That's the only
Mhm.
explanation. And they did do some reshoots because I was reading last night that apparently after he cut the movie together, Francis Ford Coppola called the writer and was like, "I hate you for writing this. This movie's awful. I did terrible. It's terrible. It's awful."
That
Oh,
seems like
God.
Coppola. That just seems like something Coppola
Yeah.
would do.
I feel like that's fair.
But those are my impressions of a movie that
All
I've
right.
only seen this movie twice, but I've extensively researched it for many years.
I love that.
That's
Alrighty.
All right, does anyone else want to give their thoughts? Who wants to follow that up? Who's going to say they don't like the movie? Who's going to do it?
No, shoot.
Should I just go?
Yeah,
Yeah,
go
go.
for it, JJ.
I loved the first 30 minutes of this movie.
Oh my god.
No, like honestly though, it was such an experience, the first like act. I loved it, so I didn't expect it to be like as off the wall as it was. I thought it'd be more like realistic or subdued, like
So this movie, so you weren't expecting the exact opposite of that?
yeah, I wasn't expecting
Yeah.
the exact. I was like, as soon as that first battle sequence against the Turks happened, I'm like, okay, I'm in for a movie.
Yep.
It reminded me of a lot of like a Terry Gilliam film, like something out of like Brazil or The Adventures of Barry Munchausen. Like,
feel-
Munchausen.
yeah, it's just like just the practicals and like the production design and just the look of the film. And even to the costumes, like his armor for that prologue was just
my
the
God.
most like
I believe Coppola has that at like his winery. On Wikipedia, it says Dracula's armor on display at Coppola's winery in California.
oh wow, interesting.
Whoa.
That
That's
that must
awesome.
have been the most uncomfortable costume because it's just like all sharp, like hard metal.
It looks
Yeah.
like an edgy stormtrooper costume, like the red
It does.
stormtroopers.
That's
But
great.
yeah, but even when they introduced Keanu, I loved Keanu for the beginning of the movie. Like when he 1st
Mhm.
goes to Dracula's like castle and mansion, and he's
Yep.
just like, "Oh my god!" Or like, I'm sorry for being rude," and chuckling for like half a second. It's just like he like even though I wouldn't call his performance good, it was just so watchable because he's doing his like whoa Keanu act where you throw him into like a super like unnatural situation, and he's just like,
Exactly.
whoa. Oh my god!
But he's also like kind of unfazed by everything weird.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
He's, like,
he
I'm
is.
surprised he
Until
just
he
didn't
starts
leave
screaming.
until he gets like attacked by all the brides, and that's when the movie was like, for me. But I have so
Oh my
much
God.
respect for the design of this movie, and I'm happy that it's a thing because it's such an experience, and I'm very happy that I watched it. So I'm really happy about this recommendation. But before I dive into specifics, Emma and Parvati can go into their thoughts as well.
You go. Okay. I was not expecting that. I was just giggling the whole time. And I love that. Sometimes you need a movie like this and it is just so great. like I can see myself rewatching it a lot in the future, just because it's just one of those movies that you would just throw on and just be like mesmerized by it every time, because it's so it's just it's just so crazy, and I love it.
I feel like it'd be a great movie to watch with like people like in a group.
I agree. That's exactly how I felt when I was watching it. I'm glad I didn't watch it on my own. I watched it with my mom. But and it was just
I wish I didn't watch it with my mom.
well, no, it was fun though, you know. And yeah, I was shocked to see all the people in it, because I was like, wow, there's so many amazing actors in this. I didn't know. And I think I have seen a photo of Gary Oldman as like Dracula before, but I just never explored more of that. So I was really just going in without any idea of what I was going to watch, and I love that. So that's what I thought.
Yeah, I agree actually with JJ that it was such an experience, and I think with things like this, I think if it's gonna start out being like eccentric, I appreciate if it stays that way like the entire way through, and I really am glad that it stayed consistent with it and things too. And but speaking on that too, like I think it started off striking me as like kind of a really bad like horror movie kind of thing, but then it turned into like a love story, and I was like, "Aw, this is a lot at once." But I kind of loved the just I don't know. It seemed very all over the place at points for me, but at the same time, I just really loved how stylistically placed it was, and I love the costumes. I love the characters a lot, and yeah, it was just overall pretty like enjoyable to just watch. And I think honestly, like I would have a really fun time watching this with other people too, just because I feel like there's so much of like random stuff that happens. That's just kind of hits you as a shock, but it's like, oh, okay. Like after it hits you, you kind of get normalized to it, and it's just I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. It is the perfect party movie to just put
Yes.
on, and then you just have a great time.
I would have to actually disagree in it being a movie that I don't know if I would feel comfortable watching this movie with anyone else, because I find it so, and it is like funny, like this is a very horny movie, like that's something that is like part of its DNA.
This movie's for the boys. This is the boys.
Oh, okay.
Okay, wow, all right then, bye.
Well, I mean, it is like, it is so strange that they cast Gary Oldman in a part that is so sexual, because Gary Oldman is not a traditionally handsome man in any sense, and he was like probably more handsome when he was younger, and he's by no means like an ugly or repulsive looking actor. He's not like, if they said let's cast Josh Gad as Dracula, where it's like ridiculous or something, but he's in that mode where a lot of it relies on the way he plays it. But anyway, I think part of the interesting of this movie, and the interesting part of it, is that it is a movie that like functions as while still being very sexual. It's not like 50 Shades of Grey, where that whole movie sort of thing is like, get it, it's sexy, the nude. This movie is like a movie that has a plot and adventure and some action and acting, and also in the middle of it, immense amounts of nudity and
It's just the whole segment. It's literally just like this segment of the movie where it's just like all its nudity and its sexiness.
And so I find it like, I don't know how I would feel watching it with someone else, because
but I feel like that's part of the experience.
Yeah, I feel like that's part of the
people.
experience.
It's definitely not for everyone. Like, this is not you have it with your parents movie for me.
No. I would not feel comfortable watching this with my parents.
But this is like when I watch with like my roommates who we watch like Brazil together and crazy stuff like that, where like the production design, like Jim Henson type films. Like, I feel like this can definitely be thrown into a category with those kinds of movies.
100% agree.
Absolutely astonishing to look at. Like, it's an unbelievable, gorgeous movie. It really is one of those movies where every single shot kind of looks like a painting.
Yeah.
It's also like completely ridiculous because it's so over. It's not like naturalistic in any way.
No.
It's not realistic. And I think that is part of the reason why, if this movie was released today, because realism and grit, even in superhero movies, like, we don't tolerate super stylized types of movie making. We can take subject matter in a movie that is very ridiculous. You know,
Yeah.
like we can watch
Mhm.
Avengers, but Avengers is like, I don't mean to criticize the Russo brothers too much, but like Infinity War and Endgame are kind of shot like as palatable as they can be in a way where like we're never, you know, like it's like a lot of handheld and like the final fight scene of Endgame is like a lot of sound. It's in like a
Yeah,
giant,
it's not
Yeah.
the most
field.
visually interesting
No, it is.
finale.
I feel like movies, like I feel like, you know, Into the Spider-Verse is very stylized, but that kind of gets away with it because it's animated. I don't
Yeah.
remember
Mhm.
the last time I saw a movie, and this was a big movie. This was one of the highest grossing movies. It was like at minimum, it was the 9th highest grossing movie in a year that was very successful in the 90s. And I can't remember the last time I could have seen a movie of the
Like-
scale that was this. It's just weird.
I feel like it's like the
Yeah.
peak of that kind of style because it's
Mhm.
92, right? 1992, and
Yeah.
Jurassic Park is 93, right? So that's like the
Yeah.
start of CGI.
And,
So
I
and
feel like-
Terminator 2 was the year before.
Oh, interesting.
Mm.
Okay, yeah. So they're the T1000 and all this
I
CGI-ness.
also-
But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I was gonna say I also think like it reminds me a lot of like Brazil and Baron Munchausen too, because they all feel
Yeah.
like stage performances to me to some extent. So it feels like it's easier to accept the world because it's such a performance in itself too, rather than it trying to be like super realistic or anything as well. Which I think
Yeah,
is the best way to tell these kinds of stories too, because if you
Yeah.
can't, if you try to tell it a different way, you have too many issues with like what's real and what's not. Whereas like
Yeah.
showing it like this is like I'm accepting the story because it's a natural performance within itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, the prologue feels like Romeo and Juliet, didn't it? It
Yeah.
felt like a stage play in that
Yeah.
sort of sense. Yes.
Yeah, it did. I know. It kind of, yeah, I like that a lot too.
I don't want to just keep bringing up the sexuality of it, but I feel like that is one of the key things that separates it from even R-rated movies these days.
Yeah, but I feel like
especially-
I want to talk about the sexuality for a bit, though.
Yeah.
Because that portion of the movie, you can't ignore that part. Because I feel like that's also rooted in the source material. Because I feel like that's like, oh, the Dracula coming around having sex with all your women.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just like a natural part of the story, isn't it? Because I
In
feel
a
like it's such
way.
a crucial part to like the mythology of Dracula. And that
I
movie,
think
like,
that's
explores it.
evolved over. That's evolved over time. Like Dracula was more of like a creeper and a creepy type of character, and that as like the more like eventually in the 70s they just decided like women are just gonna like Dracula. That's just gonna be the narrative, and no one's ever changed that.
Nice.
Is that like the idea is like the ladies like Dracula? It's just one of
The
those
ladies like
rules.
Dracula.
And
The
this movie
ladies-
takes it
Ooh.
all the way.
All the way.
Yeah, it does. It takes the idea of ladies liking Dracula and amps it up like 50,000 more than all the other movies. Which
Wait,
is...
so is it in the actual mythology though? Because I actually don't know anything about the original story.
We have a
the
book
love-
reader.
I do.
Yeah.
I read it. I feel like it's like briefly. Because I read it in middle school. I don't really remember
okay.
exactly, but I think, like Ronan was saying, kind of just like the creep aspect is what his character was. I feel like there is something though. I remember. I don't know. Let me see.
the love story aspect to it was completely invented for this specific version,
Exactly. I think so too.
Which-
Yeah.
which is one of the like best parts of the movie. That's what makes it so. That's what prevents it from being like it's a movie about a vampire and Anthony Hopkins got to kill him.
I feel like that's the part I like. See, I'm like the exact opposite of Ronan. I didn't like the romance in the movie, which is kind of because that's when I talked about the first like 30 minutes because it wasn't the vampire romance between Gary Oldman's character and Winona Ryder's character. I didn't buy that romance at all, just because in the past life she was his love interest. I didn't think that gave him any excuse to go after Keanu Reeves' girl, which is why I saw Keanu as kind of like the main character, and then he gets
Yeah.
like backseated
Okay.
in that midpoint of the movie.
See, I think the first time I watched it, I was thrown off that same way. This was I rewatched it last night, and I think I was more sort of in the group of like, okay, Keanu is not the protagonist. He's sort of a decoy. Like he shows up, you're like,
Yeah,
oh, this is the
he's a
protagonist. And at a certain point, the movie's like, nah, we don't care about Keanu.
Yeah, I know.
Let him
They
have-
literally they hide
Let
him
him
for
have
like a
his
full
3.
segment, and I completely forget that he exists in this movie.
I know, I agree. Yeah, it's like
And I'm like, oh, he's still there. Oh
yeah. I
Count
know.
Dracula. It's such
Yeah.
a
That was definitely interesting. I also went into it thinking Keanu was going to be the main character, and then all of a
Mhm.
sudden it just switches, and then he's just not there, and then he shows up again, and you're like, oh yeah, oh he's in this, huh?
yeah. I would
Yeah.
I would argue I would not be surprised. Mina's not the protagonist, but she's kind of close.
I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah, but like that's why I was thrown off a bit. I feel like
Mhm.
rewatch would definitely help, but for most of the movie I was seeing Gary Oldman as like the villain, right? Like
Mhm.
but I think in
But he's the
retrospect he
protagonist.
kind of is like the main character of the movie.
Yeah.
And
It
we are
is
supposed to be rooting
Dracula.
for his
Yeah, I was
it is
gonna
Dracula.
say it's
No,
why
but I
it's
feel
called
like
Dracula.
in a monster film, you're like hunting the monster type of
Yeah.
deal. And that's why I was invested with Anthony Hopkins and his band of Tuffy boys to go and kill the
I want to talk
Dracula.
about the Adventure Bros.
Yeah, let's
Yes,
let's
the
talk about the
Adventure
Adventure
Bros.
Bros.
Well,
Let's do
first of
it.
all, I think it's crucial to talk about Lucy first
Okay,
Okay.
I'm excited.
in what is maybe the most sexual performance in the history of movies.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sexual performances in the history of movies.
But like,
Shall we dive into
literally,
this topic?
it is the only thing she ever talks about. The only thing, and
That's
she
true.
isn't like in a couple scenes. She is
No,
a
it's like
very crucial part of the movie. Everything she talks about is sex.
yeah.
Everything she
Go ahead.
it's true though.
It is
Like-
true. I like
No,
her
that's-
introduction when they're reading like the Kuma
Yeah.
Sutra or whatever, the Arabian Nights. I hated that scene so much. Like,
I love
whoa!
that.
You did?
like, look, married men doing this on the floor, and then like she has her 3 grumpy boys come in and like hit on her, and she's like, "Oh, your knife is so big." I'm just like, "What am I? Where's Keanu?" And
I love
Dracula.
that though. I was like, this
No,
is
but it was
bad,
so
but
funny.
good.
There's nothing more erotic than a Texan showing off his Bowie knife. Jake.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's true.
God, first of all, I had a feeling last night. I was wondering, like, because apparently now I'm a cowboy is sort of the joke that is now amongst you guys, kind of.
Sure.
Thanks to Harmony. Like now I'm kind of so I feel like if I had to play, if we were all cast in different roles in this, and everyone we knew had to
God.
fill out the cast,
Oh no.
I would have to be
The
Yeah,
Texan.
cowboy.
you'd probably be
Oh, of
Texan.
course.
by default.
Wait, who would I be? But yeah, who would BHB then?
There's only 2 female characters in this movie, isn't it?
Parvati
No,
So-
I'm
is
talking
Ren-
yeah,
about
there
the
are.
Adventure Bros.
Parvati
Oh.
is Renfield.
Which one is
Which
that?
one's
Is that the one who
Is
marries?
that the crazy one?
Yeah, of
That's
course.
the doctor, that's the
His
doctor?
Renfield is in the asylum.
Oh,
Oh, Renfield's the
Oh.
guy.
thanks,
That's
Ronan.
that's one of my favorite shots in the whole movie is Renfield's
Yeah.
like introduction when he like
Oh,
floats
when he's
up.
Yeah.
Where he's like,
The
against
ca-
the
the ca-
wall.
Too. That
the
especially
camera's
reminded me of
like
Brazil.
strapped to the ceiling, and by the way, the guy who plays him is primarily a musician. His name is Tom Waits, and most of his performances have been in. He's done a lot of acting, but a lot of them have been in Coppola movies.
Oh, interesting.
Okay.
He's done a lot of music. He's been around. He's 70 years old. He's been a musician for decades. And I'm trying to find a movie he was in. He was in The Outsiders, but I don't know if any.
Oh wait, really?
Oh.
Wait, who did he play in The
And I
Outsiders?
did not like The Outsiders when I
Wait,
watched
who did
it.
he play?
He played the character named Buck in The Outsiders.
I don't know.
There's
The
like,
character's name.
there's like a billion
watched this
boys.
so
in
long.
there.
There's so many guys.
Who's the main character? Honey Boy? Pony Boy. It's Pony Boy, right?
Pony
Uh,
Boy, Honey
Honey
Boy. Oh, I
Boy.
get it. I know.
Yes.
I was like,
Oh, I
Where's
get it.
Avery?
Where's Avery? No, in middle school, yeah, because in middle
Oh
school
my-
we read The Outsiders and then watched the movie.
Yeah,
I
same.
hated the
Exactly.
movie. I was like, I can't believe this is a Coppola film.
Yeah, Coppola directed it.
I was gonna say, I feel like when I was watching this movie, I was so focused on like Dracula and what's the female's name again? I'm so sorry.
Mina?
Mina, yeah. I was so focused
Mina.
on them that I completely like ignored like the Adventure Bros, and I'm really sad. And so now I'm gonna rewatch it and focus more on them because I know that like that was such a fun aspect, but I was just so focused on everything else going on.
It's
Yeah.
it's so good in that they're all like such defined.
Yes.
Like,
Exactly.
the way they're introduced completely defines them. Like, because, like, well, their names are Quincy Morris. Quincy is the Texan, played by Billy Campbell, who is most famous for playing the Rocketeer the year before this, which was a Disney movie. Am I the only?
I have not heard of
I've
Here?
heard of it. I haven't seen it though.
It's a
Me
wonderful, like, Indiana Jones type
Fun.
90s, early 90s Disney movie.
Yeah.
So he shows up and he's got this absolutely enormous accent. It is the
Yep.
biggest Texan accent. Where he's like,
Oh my
Miss
gosh.
Lucy. And he shows her his Bowie knife.
Yep.
Very large Bowie knife.
And it's a great knife.
It is. It's a big knife. It's a great knife. Now this is enough.
And then immediately we're introduced to Dr. Seward, who's played by Richard E. Grant, who's now famous. He was in Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh,
I forgot he was in Rise of Skywalker. Oh my gosh.
He's in Logan.
Yeah, I know. I recognized him from Logan. I haven't.
Who is he in Logan? What?
He was
He's the scientist who shows
he's
up
a
at the very
scientist.
end and then gets like shot in the
Yeah.
I do not
Spoilers
remember.
for Logan.
Spoilers for Logan.
Oh, whoops.
Oh,
I've
also.
only seen Logan once because it's such an emotionally like heavy movie that I can't.
Oh, I
bring
watch
myself
it
to
a
rewatch
lot.
it. It's a great film,
I
but
love it. I have it on DVD right there.
But Dr. Seward shows up. I think he trips on himself in the doorway
oh yes,
and then falls
oh my
on
god,
the way in and sits on Quincy's hat and apologizes to him. And then, of course, we have who else but as her soon-to-be husband, we have Wesley from The Princess Bride.
exactly. That is Wesley.
Shows up with a mustache. He's got a great mustache.
hmm
And they're the Adventure Bros. They just all ride on horseback together.
Ooh.
They all love the same woman, which is horrible. And one of my favorite moments
brother
from the whole
husband.
thing. One of my favorite, yeah. It's. I feel like I'm talking too much. Should I step back?
I'm excited.
No.
One of
No,
my
what do you-
favorite.
what do you-
One of my favorite moments is from the montage of when there's this amazing montage when Dracula is showing up in the boat. I forget what it's called. It's called like
the boat's name?
yeah. The ship is called it's not Dementor, but it's very
Demeter
close
something?
to that.
Dementor.
Demeter.
Demeter.
Oh
I
yeah.
was confused about how Dracula was able to teleport from the boat to England and become like a werewolf type of
Because
character.
he's magic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not important.
I thought
That
they
is
were
a-
two different characters
There was some
until the
different-
last 30 minutes of the movie, and then I put it together, and I was like, "Oh wait, that was Dracula? No way!"
Because he was
Oh my
also
God.
going after Lucy's blood, and then
He
it's just
was.
Yeah,
like,
and then
Yeah.
he was like in the garden or something, laying there or something while she was dying. Too.
Yeah.
he was still on the boat at this time.
Yeah. I
So,
don't.
no. His remains were being transported from the boat to Carfax Abbey, which in other adaptations is like a decrepit building. And this one is literally like the hollowed out remains of a church.
Yeah.
But in any way, there's this moment where during the montage it shows Dr. Seward recording a phonograph record about Renfield, and he injects himself with morphine, and he's like whispering and moaning with his name. It's just this little bit. It's so small.
Oh, I remember that now.
Yeah,
know
I
what
did
you're talking
too.
about.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, why?
Yeah.
Why do I love it?
Yes, and also why that scene? Like, why?
Because it's like that is a whole relationship you could base an entire movie around, and instead it's just one small fraction. And also because it's a detail that gives so much depth to a supporting character who is mainly there for plot purposes,
Mhm.
and who is sort of there just to give an excuse for the introduction to Van Helsing, the greatest supporting character in the history of cinema.
I
But-
loved Van Helsing. Loved Anthony Hopkins in this.
I
movie.
also
We haven't
love.
talked about Lucy though.
I have so much to say about Lucy that cannot be said.
What?
Oh, okay.
Uh-oh, okay.
I'm just kidding. I'm sorry.
So we get into the rain scene where the werewolf shows up.
Yeah, that was crazy. I did not see this movie. Just like there's so much that happens.
The furries must go crazy for
The
that.
furries
Oh,
must go
yes.
crazy for that scene. Yes.
They must.
As much as Lucy is, out in that scene, I've like, we can talk about this later.
What?
Well,
No,
it's-
I'm
well-
excited. Talk
Well,
about it.
Lucy is
Because I was gonna bring up Winona Ryder in this
Oh,
section. Yes,
As
I
we always
Winona
should.
Ryder is very pretty and she's very attractive, but I don't think I've ever been attracted to her until that scene.
wait, which one?
when she
The rain
kisses.
scene when
I
she
don't
kisses
find-
Lucy, and then she's also just like wandering out with nothing on, basically, just
I
like a
don't-
dress.
I,
And
I
she's like,
was
and then
mainly-
she's go ahead.
I was mainly focusing on how I found it more distracting and I think kind of unfair to her as an actress. I thought it was unnecessary for the later scene when the werewolf shows up. Well, not the werewolf, when Dracula shows up in wolf form and she's walking out in not the same dress. It's sort of similar because she wears a lot of blue in it.
Hmm.
But
I
she's wearing
didn't.
these blue pajamas where it's very clear she has nothing underneath. This
Underneath
very
it.
skimpy
Yeah.
outfit. And I'm like, God, someone just like this poor woman is out in this wind cold and it's totally unnecessary
Ronan's out
for us
here
to
feeling
see.
so bad for her.
When
I feel like
Winona-
okay, at that point of the movie, they've already established the amount of nudity and like whatnot and sexuality. It's
Yeah,
just-
I
every-
looked it up,
part of it.
and the actual book Dracula is like filled with sex and sexuality. So
Okay.
just to let you all know, because there's so many articles on like Dracula is all about sex, sexual undertone in Dracula and stuff like that. So it's very much so then on brand with the book. So,
Yeah, like every other scene, Lucy just manages to have her dress slip right under her.
yeah,
Mhm.
And it's like it's
it's
both
funny.
it's sometimes it's like upsetting, and I think it's supposed to be upsetting to watch the
Yeah.
amount of violence in juxtaposition to the amount of nudity, because I feel like the MPAA has kind of gotten stricter in those areas for no good reason since then. I feel like if anyone tried to do that today with the movie, it'd be like X.
X.
Cut it
No,
out immediately.
Midsummer was basically NC-17 because of a bunch of nudity, and
Yeah,
they had to
The
cut a lot
least
out.
erotic movie that has ever been made.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
The MPAA and nudity is just horrible. Like
it is.
the MPAA is also like a really corrupt organization, but we don't need to.
Yeah, I
we
know.
need to
Very
get into
true.
I'm just picturing like a bunch of like mob bosses sitting at a table, like smoking cigars, being like, "And we shall give Midsummer and NC-17." Like,
Did you look at all the nudity? Like what?
Did
And then
you
they,
see
they,
that?
they say nothing about men getting their face bashed in with a giant hammer.
Yeah,
but-
no.
Oof.
or it's
But-
like women can be nude, but no penises. That is
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
The
That's
penis has
such a-
crossed the line.
It's such a weird like idea. I don't. Anyway.
No, but back to Lucy though. I feel like the overt sexuality this eventually gets played for comedy, and then
It does. I agree.
but then it's just so uncomfortable as well because I feel like she's just straight up getting like raped, right, by Dracula. at this
yeah,
point,
no,
'cause this
that's
is like
what-
unwanted sex.
It is.
from-
Yeah,
but
there's
that's
no
supposed to
consent.
be upsetting.
It is. Yeah,
know,
that's
like-
I 100%.
I don't think they play it that upsetting. It just doesn't.
No,
it
I
feel-
think it's supposed to be like
Hello, Clegg.
What's up, Craig? Little technical difficulties, but we'll
Well,
just.
technicalities.
So we were on sexuality and
Yeah.
yeah, we're talking about boobies.
it made him uncomfortable. Craig had to dip out for a second.
Yep.
I mean,
Okay, wait. So do we enjoy? Because I felt like the movie didn't necessarily need to show that much nudity. Just like I don't think I've stated that yet. Like when I see nudity in a movie, I usually like judge if it's necessary for like the film. And like you think about the source material, I'm like, yeah, this does exist, but I don't think they needed to be so overt about it.
Yeah.
But
I
you know.
agree.
I agree. I
Right
definitely
there.
thought they could have cut down on it like at least by half. I just
Mhm.
felt like there was just so much repetition. So after a certain point, it just got kind of numb, and at that point, it felt like it really wasn't needed.
Yeah, and also like as you're like saying earlier, JJ, it's only in a certain part of the movie.
It's like
Maybe
that
if it was spaced
midsection.
out. If it was spaced out, it might have been a little bit
Mhm.
better. because it wouldn't feel like it was just constantly just nudity and sex and like sexuality and stuff all at once, because it really was just all in the middle of the film.
Yeah,
Um,
I started thinking about how
yeah.
Coppola is also probably like an 80-year-old man at this point, right?
No, when he made the movie.
How old was he?
Well, he's 81
60.
now.
He's 81 now. Okay,
So this
Oh,
movie was made 18
years ago. So he's
only
like,
18 years ago. So he was like
no, not 18 years ago. It's
18.
2020.
Yeah.
22 years.
28.
28 years ago.
My apologies.
Me
28
too.
years ago. So that means he was like under 60. He's
Okay.
in like his mid 50s when he made it.
Jesus.
Wow. I thought he'd be older today.
Also,
I also feel that.
as Wikipedia states, Coppola brought in acting coach Greta Seacat to coach to coach Sadie Foster, who played Lucy, and Winona Ryder for their erotic scenes, as he felt uncomfortable discussing sexuality with actresses.
Oh,
Interesting.
interesting.
So he was not like screaming at them to like,
Yeah.
no, he was not.
Yeah.
He was probably a bit classy about it. But I
Okay,
do
that's
imagine
cool.
somewhere in some like salt mine in Utah, there's like 10 hours of how much footage they shot of Lucy writhing in bed, because she's writhing in
yeah.
bed for half.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
is. Yeah, that's that. But that's like
That's a
the
lot.
part where you were saying like it's literally like Dracula is like raping her, and you're supposed to feel uncomfortable.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
you do
gross.
feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, you do feel uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable.
But I don't feel like it's ever too exploitive. It, you know, I
I don't think it crosses the line, but I would
No.
have preferred if they cut it down. Still.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
understand. For me, I think I'm just so like, I watch a lot of older movies that are more comfortable. Some are exploitive for sure in a way that is bad, and I think those things have changed for the good in the industry. But I feel like to a point where I watch a lot of movies today where I just feel like these are two adults, and I highly doubt that their relationship climaxes and the peak of it is them kissing in front of like 5 other. There's like, I feel like there's so much more to be carved out of, and there's so much more to be gained from stuff like that in certain movies. And I feel like this is one movie that totally takes it all the way to a way that is probably intentionally extreme, but it feels appropriate because of the subject matter, and because it is not always being used just to be like, ooh, I hope the audience gets off to this. It's like, yeah, when the 3 sort of Dracula's brides show up with Keanu, there's a point where it is supposed to feel like disgusting, and it does feel disgusting
It does.
because it's our soft boy, it's our pure
I
Sorry, yeah,
know.
Keanu.
I'm getting married
Well-
soon, and he's such a wholesome but like an idiot at the same time. But,
Oh,
Oh,
Yeah.
he's so
idiot.
stupid. He's the dumbest. Yeah, it's a good thing those adventure bros are there.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, did you want to
Okay.
get into like favorite
no,
performance?
we're gonna move on into segments now. So this is our YouTube scene. What scene would we go back to and just rewatch without having to go through the entire movie?
Ooh, interesting.
Oh, I have to think about that. That's
Ooh,
a
I
good
actually
point.
have one.
Oh,
Okay, go
for
ahead.
it.
And I like knew it was gonna be my favorite part when I first saw it too. But just like the part when when Dracula asks Keanu's character to like stay for 30 days, and then I just love the entire film. I love like all of the playing with like the shadows and things too.
Oh
and
yeah,
so,
that's when
Oh,
they
yeah.
the
So
shadow.
sick.
Yeah.
So
So the
cool.
part where he like overtakes everything and then he's just like shrouded in shadow and it just
Oh,
swallows
just
him
with the
up. I
cape.
love
Yeah.
that part so much.
Yeah, that's
I love
really cool. I agree. That's really cool. That's
Mhm.
a good part. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know.
just like the shadows in that whole
Yeah.
section was amazing. Just because
Mhm.
Gary Oldman's character would be doing one thing, but his shadow would be doing something else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
It was
he's
very
like talking,
visual.
but he's like choking him in the background. Ah.
I
I
know.
know that was so cool.
Hilarious, but also very
It
impressive.
was.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I love that. It did so many like the production design and the lighting in it
know.
is so cool. And also the
was-
makeup in it. And like I loved like
Okay, he kind
Dracula's
of looked like the
monster
Emperor
form.
from Star Wars, though. Gary
I
Oldman's
don't
old.
Well, no, not old him, but like the monster version of him, not the
Oh,
wolf
like the
one.
werewolf? No.
No, not the wolf
Oh,
I
one.
know what
the
you're talking about.
version of him at
Yeah.
the end.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought that was so cool. I loved that. I thought that was so fun. And I feel like that would be maybe a scene I would go back to. I just liked how the makeup looked. It's so unique and fun, and I like that. It was cool. That would
Oh,
definitely be.
I just wanted to add for the shadow thing. I was just really surprised at how clean all of it looked too. Like it
Yeah.
didn't look sloppy or like choppy or anything. It was all so like smoothly done, and I didn't feel for a second that it was like violating any of their spaces unless it had to be. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the shadows.
I get that.
A lot of the shadows were done by like they had another guy on set.
Yeah, that's what I
Shadow.
assumed.
The film is notable. I've just mentioned this because you guys are talking about some of the special effects briefly. The film is notable for that. Coppola wanted all of the. There was no CGI used in this movie, even though it was on the. There's a lot of matte paintings. I love all the train effects. Oh, the train ride.
Yeah, the train. I love the train.
Miniatures? The train?
Yeah,
Those
the
seem
train
like
was a
miniatures,
miniature,
yeah.
of course. But it's cute.
Is because the standard visual effects team had hired. He wanted like old school, like silent film type special effects and a lot of like stuff to be done on set. And the guys he hired said, "Nah, we won't do that." And he said, "Okay, I'll fire you, and I will hire my son, who at the time was
Wait, Roman Coppola?
Roman
Or the special
Coppola
effects guy?
was the visual effects director, and he was
Wow.
like 26
No
at the time.
way.
Yeah,
Dang,
and he
good
was
for
the head
him.
of. He didn't like do it all himself, but he was the head of the team that was in charge of a lot. And there's a lot of that's its own podcast is dissecting the visuals of this movie. I'm honestly sort of sad that it wasn't nominated for best visual effects because they are.
It should be. It's incredible. When I was watching it, that's what really stood out to me most. Like the makeup, the costume, and the production design is what I really, really liked in this film. I thought it was so good. It's kind of like that combination of like Brazil production design with like old like Universal monster type movies, and like it combines those in such a unique way, and I love the style of it. I thought it was so fun, so unique, and I liked it.
Yeah, everything in the movie felt tangible and felt real. Like I could actually just like almost like too much for like creeps, you know? Like when what's his name? Reinfeld's like eating bugs. That's like
Yum. Delicious.
He's got a little plate.
Would you care for another? Yeah, I love.
Yeah.
No, just like the design of the whole
Protein.
asylum and the guards have like cages on their heads.
Yeah, that was so cool. I
That
love
is
the
so cool.
cages. The
That was
cages
very
were
metal.
so
That
fun.
was so metal.
I know that was sick. I love that. There's just so many small details that I love, like the shadows, like you were saying, the cages on the head. There's just those random small details that you wouldn't really think that are that important, but it just makes it so good. But
It definitely gives the film a lot of personality.
Exactly. Very true.
But back to like a YouTube scene.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna go with Anthony Hopkins' introduction as Van Helsing,
Good.
giving his college lecture to like a
Yeah.
standing room, and it's just like half like a room, and
Yeah.
everyone's looking down on him, and he has like the bat bite him, and I just like at that point I was kind of out of the movie because like you know Keanu was out of it, and I needed like a new character, and like Van Helsing was the guy, and Anthony Hopkins as Ronan talked about earlier is amazing, and I loved his
So good.
introduction. I think it was yeah, go ahead.
You know, I have a question about that scene. What were the people doing? Like they weren't applauding him.
What
did they do?
Oh, they were
like
knocking
knocking
on
on
the
their
floor.
desks.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. I was really confused when I saw that, and I was like, okay. I guess I just didn't get that.
I cringed when the bat like bit him, and then he just like licked blood off his finger because I was like,
very timely for 2020.
I know.
Yeah,
No,
he's
he was
making, like-
talking. Yeah,
He's
He was
making
talking
like
about
syphilis
diseases.
jokes.
yeah, they were funny.
Civilization.
Civilization
Civilization is
and
civilization.
So
have
good.
events together. Yeah.
His character is just brilliant. It's just so fun. It's so fun. Oh my god, yeah.
I'm trying to decide a YouTube scene because I love so much of this movie, and it'd
Mhm.
probably be easier to talk about the stuff I did. I think of YouTube scenes. I love the train ride. I love anytime people are like moving in this movie, like when he's in
carriage
the
ride
carriage,
too.
the carriage
Yeah.
ride to the castle.
Oh, I have to
is
talk
so
about that
gorgeous.
too, actually.
Yes.
Or the train ride itself. But I think in terms of the actual meat of the is all of that sort of just like gorgeous, like gossamer, like icing on the cake. I think my favorite scenes in the YouTube scenes, I would pick the dinner scene between Mina and Dracula is gorgeous and incredibly well acted. They're like when she's beginning to remember past life.
Yeah.
The romance of that scene is incredible because of how delicate it is, and not like, and he does this beautiful thing that isn't explained. There are no rules. I love that Dracula has kind of unlimited powers.
Yeah.
There are
Yeah,
no like
his
set
powers are
rules.
just like whatever.
Like at
But
one
it doesn't
point,
need to be explained. I think
he takes
I like
her
that.
tear. He wipes her tear away and opens his
Oh,
hand and turns it into
I
like
love-
little
Yeah.
Oh,
diamond.
that
Oh,
was
yeah.
so. I liked that a lot. I thought that was so cool.
So I think that scene is one of my picks.
That's
I
a
think
good scene.
the whole scene where they have to kill Lucy is
That's a great. Yep.
That
incredible.
is really good.
Power of Christ compels you, and then
Yeah.
she vomits on him.
yes.
Well, no, it's blood. Oh yeah,
Vomits
that's
blood on him.
vomit
Yeah.
blood. Yeah, that's right.
It's-
Oh my.
so that scene,
That's
I
like
would
the Grumpy
pick-
Boys Unite scene right there.
I would. Oh yeah, I would pick the scene where, even though it's not that long, I love how there's like music during in it. Is the scene where the brides, when it's in the snow and it's just Van Helsing and Winona together,
Yeah.
and then it cuts to the morning after, like they start slaughtering the horses, and he's screaming at them. He's just screaming into the night, and then it cuts. They're all sleeping in some chamber, and he just comes in. He just beheads all of them. And it
Yeah,
cuts to him
and
throwing
chucks
them
it
off
into the
bridge.
river.
Yep.
Oh my god, that was hilarious.
So those scenes are probably, and the extended scene between Mina and Dracula that then results in him being ambushed and him turning into, like it begins with him as a mist. They have that love scene, and
That's
then
cool.
it turns to him. So yeah, I would say that the death of Lucy, the dinner scene between Dracula and Mina, and the confrontation between Dracula, Mina, and the Adventure Boys.
Yeah, I like that one too. That's what I was saying.
You would go with those two.
No, I would go with like the confrontation scene, like as I say before, because the makeup and this, I thought that was cool with the Dracula's monster, not wolf form. He's so many different, like it's so hard to describe which one.
Yeah,
it
he
is.
also has like an all rat form when he just turns into a bunch
Oh,
of rats.
God.
I
and then-
like that. That was
such
fun.
a cool visual. Yes.
Yeah,
But I
I
love,
was like,
I lo-
he's a rat man.
I loved how that little piece like progresses, because he's sort of backing away into the darkness, and Van Helsing
Yeah.
screaming more light, and Wesley like lifts this lamp up in the frame, and suddenly the entire scene lights up, and it's just a bunch of mice. Not
Mhm.
mice,
I
rats.
rewatched. I
Rats, yeah,
rewatched
rats.
that like 4
Large
times.
rats.
Yeah, that was really cool. That scene is just so well done. I think I
Yeah.
love that. I thought that was the scene that I would
No one
choose as
picked,
my YouTube one.
no one picked Keanu being having an orgy.
No.
No, sorry.
Yeah. Maybe if we're doing a different kind of scene type of category, I'd pick
Oh
that.
my
No,
God.
actually, I'd pick the rain scene with Winona.
Oh my god.
But speaking of Winona, let's get into favorite performances, because there's a lot of
Winona!
performances to pick from. Yeah, do you just
Yeah.
want to start with Winona, Emma? Because you were kind of on a Winona marathon.
Oh
this
yeah,
past week
okay.
and a half.
So, yes. Well, I don't think I would say Winona was my favorite in this,
Okay.
but I definitely really loved her performance, and I thought I just love Winona Ryder. So, I mean, I feel like it's more of a biased answer because I had watched I watched 4 other movies with her this week. So, just getting all around all her different types of movies that she's been in. And I think this was one of the most fun ones.
Mhm.
Like, I think this is one of those performances that I feel like was a little bit more challenging for her because it's a little different,
She
from-
doesn't usually do English accents.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I
also,
think,
yeah, no, go ahead.
her accent's totally fine compared
Oh,
to
her
Kate
accent's,
Winslet's,
yeah.
no.
Yeah, especially compared to Keanu.
Poor
Poor
Keanu.
Keanu.
Poor
Oh,
Keanu.
no.
I enjoyed his performance though. Obviously, I'm not
Yeah.
gonna say it's my favorite, but I actually enjoyed watching him for the
Yeah.
first act of the movie when I
Count
thought he
Yeah.
was Count Dracula, and I thought the movie was gonna revolve around him, and I'm like this
Mhm.
naive, stupid
Some blue
character.
inferno.
Yeah. I feel like the best performance is Anthony Hopkins, though. I don't know. I feel like his
Interesting.
character, he's just, I loved him in it. He was so good and over the top, but also not at the same time. And every scene with him was just fantastic.
All right. Anyone else want to go with Anyone agree with Anthony Hopkins? Like I love his performance
I
too,
don't. I don't agree with it either. Just because it felt like for me, it felt really like maybe it was the directing that I didn't enjoy for what his parts did, but it felt like all over the place at so many different times. So I felt like I was watching different characters at different times of the movie.
Mhm.
I don't know, but
he literally
think-
plays different characters.
No,
Yeah, I know.
I know that, but like him in his like consistent character as the Doctor, it felt so
Yeah, yeah.
different at different points, and it was just a little too inconsistent for me to think that he was the best. But I did enjoy his performance a lot. I think I would say my favorite performance was either like Lucy because like of everything that she does do in her character, or as or Winona Ryder, I think too. Yeah, I just think
She's
like
like
what
up
they
there.
yeah, because I think what they have to act out is kind of difficult, you know, like the slow, like scary seduction of like of Dracula within themselves, but also it's like this weird force that they don't understand. I think it's kind of a difficult thing to portray in acting. So I think their performances were definitely the best for me.
I would say that, although if I had to choose a performance from this movie to be nominated, it would of course be Gary Oldman. Absolutely outstanding. It is the best Dracula. There will never be a better Dracula. He has to portray him at so many different ages and so many, and he had to like lower his voice by 2 octaves and learn a different language, and it all feels seamless and totally seamless in how good it is. And Gary Oldman has to be sexy, which is something that Gary Oldman never does. But it's
You
like,
don't think he's sexy in like The Darkest Hour or something?
Oh,
Yeah.
but legitimately,
Winston Churchill.
like there are some actors and actresses who can probably find it easy. Like I'm sure Sadie Frost, who was cast, the reason why she was cast is because she could easily tap into that sensuality. But other actors like Gary Oldman probably aren't as comfortable with it because Gary Oldman isn't a traditionally, he doesn't look.
Yeah.
He's not like
Going through like
Heartthrob.
your attractive actors.
Yeah, no,
But, like,
he's not a Hollywood
like-
heartthrob type of.
like Keanu Reeves was cast because he was a heartthrob, and I feel like if this exact movie was made today, Timothy Chalamet would be playing Jonathan Harker, no question, because that's the thing.
That's funny.
But like Gary Oldman was never considered that, so the fact that he is so convincing as a romantic lead in Scenes Against Winona is he's the like factually, in my opinion, the best performance. But as the most enjoyable performance is Anthony Hopkins because he goes full ham and he's just eating like giant. He's just like drinking beer and just screaming like a madman. Like
he's just having fun, and I love that.
He looks like he had a lot of fun.
I know that's why
Yeah.
I think performances where you can tell that the actor just had like the most fun making it. Those are the best. I love those. So I feel like that's why I would also choose Anthony Hopkins.
And I think I love the way he looks. Like he looks so like everyone has such a defined look.
Yeah.
Even Keanu with his goddamn stupid haircut.
It looks fine at first, but it just
I
gets
know.
so
Because
bad.
it's like this.
It's good.
Done
He
up like this,
styled it.
and then eventually it's like.
It like comes down. Yeah, it comes
It's
down
so
towards the forehead.
flat. Anyway.
But everyone has such a defined look, and I love Van Helsing. Like he's always in these browns.
Yeah, his
Yeah.
Of course, the
brown,
costume
yeah.
is great, but I love he has like kind of a beard and he has the long hair, and I think my favorite moment of that performance is when Dracula gets the breakup note. Winona, when she says I'm breaking up
and
with
she's
you.
like throwing the notes in the water.
I love
part?
that. I love that visual because it's all visual storytelling. It doesn't have to make literal sense. Like, why is she throwing out those notes? It maybe is her diary because she has a diary. It's her diary of her time with the prince, and she never wants Jonathan to find out about it. But I love the visual for casting out the pages into the water, and then Dracula like creates this giant wind in his anger, and it rips through this library, and Anthony Hopkins just starts like cackle. He just goes completely insane. He's laughing at this. It's like, finally, I found you. Truth after all these years, and he's just laughing, and I think that's something that some actors, because we've gone into this like mode. I think the Leonardo DiCaprio school of acting has ruined an entire generation of young actors who think that like not stoicism, but like method acting and trying to be super serious and sad all the time. That's true acting. Whereas Anthony Hopkins sets the antithesis, where it's just go in the complete opposite direction. But it is like such a bold and big performance. I understand why he and JJ were kind of put off by how weird. Like he's just humping people's legs and.
But I enjoyed Anthony Hopkins' performance. Like he was the part. His story was the part I was the most invested in, because I didn't really buy the romance between Dracula and Nina. But Gary Oldman's performance is my favorite.
I did love Gary Oldman as well.
Yeah, because Gary Oldman does his like villain act in movies, you know, like in Fifth Element or in like Leon the Professional, and I feel like he channels that. He channels that here, but he adds like this whole like mythicism to it, like this like gravitas. This like he speaks like the Count. Like this is like the classic like vampires speak, and it's like it was kind of like cheesy at first, but then you really buy into it because like there's also like a physicality to his performance that I really enjoyed. And yeah, like an Oscar nomination. Like I don't know who else was nominated that year. I'm pretty sure Ronan could tell me. But
I'll look it up. I think he should have been.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
It is such an interesting performance.
I love his accent in it too, because I think I was also comparing
he's such a good like voice actor.
Yeah, but I was comparing it to his performance in Air Force One. I don't know if you guys saw it, like him.
I have not seen Air Force,
but he has this really horrible Middle Eastern accent, which I absolutely hate because it's so. I hate it so much, and so I was comparing it to like that, and I was like, yeah, this is another level. It's so good. And I also was gonna say I like the casting of him too, because I feel like since he's not an obvious like heartthrob too, that you feel like you can see both sides of the story. So it's like you can either side with him or you can feel like he's the villain too. So I feel like that duality of like him being cast that way also really helps with that too, because you can't see one side or the other, you see both.
Interesting.
Yeah.
The other nominees this year, the year that this movie came out, the winner was Al Pacino for Scent of.
Is that his hoo-wah performance?
Yeah, this is where he plays a blind man, and it's like he's screaming the whole time. Robert Downey Jr. was nominated for playing Charlie Chaplin.
Yes.
In like a 3-hour-long biopic. No, it's 2.5. I apologize. It's not.
That makes so much of a difference.
Yeah.
Clint Eastwood was the new 3.
Clint Eastwood was nominated for Unforgiven.
Okay.
Denzel was nominated for Malcolm X.
Yes.
And
he probably should have won.
Stephen Ray. People have said he should have won. Stephen Ray was nominated for Crying Game.
I have not heard.
I have not heard of that. Yeah.
Oh well. Oh, interesting. Okay. It's a classic movie that has a famous twist in it, but I won't say any more than that. So. But yeah,
interested. That's a good enough hook for me. Yeah, I don't think I know enough about all the nominees to see if I would put Gary Oldman. But I just wanted to say I loved his performance, and it was my favorite. Even if like his parts of the movie weren't necessarily my favorite, just him being there was enough for me to want to watch those parts.
I know. I feel like his performance at the beginning is kind of is in line with how over the top everything seems at first. And then it just, you ease into it and it's so normal. And I feel like a lot of it has to do with his performance as well. Because at first it's so crazy and then you're just like, oh wait, no, this is the movie. So
I apologize. I thought you were I almost talked over you. I'm sorry.
You're good.
Oh, we talk over each other all the time.
Yeah. All the time.
But I didn't want to interrupt. I don't know how many of you noticed it, but at the very beginning of the movie, Gary Oldman shows up. And he's, it's when he renounces God and he renounces Christ, and he's so angry because his love which to
was
be
bamboozled into killing
Yeah.
him.
to be set to wed Winona Ryder, who clearly he's very broken up over it. I don't know how many of
Yes.
you noticed, but there's only one priest he talks to, and this priest is like yelling at him. This priest is played by Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah, it's Anthony
Yeah.
Hopkins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought
With a
that's what
giant
his role
beard
was
and
going to be in this movie, actually. I didn't know he was going to have a later on role.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought it would just be him, and he's the narrator, and that's
Yeah. And he's
like
narrating
his
it.
cameo.
Yeah, which if you could have Anthony Hopkins narrate your movie, of course, why wouldn't you?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
why wouldn't
Of
you, for
course.
sure.
It's
One
perfect.
of the greatest
Amazing.
voices ever. Yeah.
Yes. Agreed.
Yeah, I didn't know he was gonna play Van Helsing. I thought it was a very interesting choice.
I
'cause, like,
didn't either. Yeah, that was.
season with Van Helsing is Hugh Jackman and Van Helsing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
Van
like,
Helsing is sort of
Oh, boy.
as movies have gone. Of course, Dracula, like Van Helsing was always older, but like as it's gone on, Van Helsing has gotten like younger and sexier
Yeah.
more and more that they do it. So this is like in that sweet spot where it's like he's not like young or handsome.
Yeah.
He's just, like, but he's like more fit and he's
Mhm.
like physically able and he's sort of in like his early 60s, late 50s.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
Um,
plays
I
it
feel like
rugged
it's
enough where
great.
I could buy him being like an action hero in a way.
Yeah.
I also feel like it's interesting, if I may point out, at some point, I just want to go over the context, if I could, of where everyone was in their career at this point, because
Yeah.
this was a weird part of Anthony Hopkins' career where he was like kind of a giant movie star,
That's interesting.
because this was right after Silence of the Lambs. This was
Yeah.
this was like not his first. He had already done a couple movies after after Silence of the Lambs.
Silence.
But this was the first like massive blockbuster to come out of his
Interesting,
after
yes.
Silence of the Lambs.
Interesting. Yeah, that's weird to think about.
In a very supporting role.
Yeah. Interesting.
Wait, does
Yeah.
that mean that he was one of the people that they advertised the movie for? Like, go watch to see Anthony Hopkins then?
He was billed. I think he's billed above Keanu.
Yeah, that's
I
what, when
would. Yeah.
Keanu came in, I was like, why isn't he billed? Because it was like Gary Oldman and Winona Ryder star in. So when I
Yeah.
saw Keanu, I was like, was he just too little of a
Well, let me.
actor at this point?
This is one of the things I wanted to get to, is talking about where everyone was in their career at this point, because
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Gary Oldman was not a big star
No.
in America
Mhm.
at the time. He had already been in a bunch of movies. He had
Yes.
been in State of Grace, which was a movie that got him well known. Sean Penn was the lead. He played Lee Harvey Oswald the year before this in JFK, but he didn't become like a really big deal. Another decade.
Yeah, what was like his like big launching role for Gary Oldman?
He was in.
Because like I feel like he's just been
he was
around.
in Sid and Nancy was the big movie, but that was a British
Oh.
movie where he played Sid Vicious
Huh.
from the Sex
I- I
Whoa,
Pistols.
what a name!
He was a musician.
Vicious.
What year was that?
That was '86.
Okay.
This was, I think, the movie that made him big in America.
Interesting.
Really? Wow.
But I don't know anyone else who was considered for the role, and I can't imagine anyone else playing it as good as he did.
no.
But
I feel
the-
like he's just the best.
The order of the billing is no one's billed above the title.
Okay.
It's Bram Stoker's Dracula.
So Bram Stoker got top billing.
Bram
in this
Stoker.
Yeah.
It's actually
Nice.
officially part of the title. So the
Yeah, it
title
is,
of the
yeah.
movie is
Is
Bram
Bram
Stoker's
Stoker's Dracula.
Because Dracula is copyrighted.
But the billing is Gary Oldman, Winona
Okay.
Ryder,
Winona Ryder. yeah.
Anthony
Yes.
Hopkins, Keanu Reeves. And
Wow.
Keanu Reeves, where Keanu Reeves' career was at this point. This was Gary Oldman's like first top billing role in
Oh,
America.
nice.
In America, for
That's
sure.
cool.
And he was already an acclaimed actor, so it was not like, oh, who's this? Let's get this unknown. It was just this like he was on a rise.
hmm
Keanu Reeves had been in Point Break the year before.
Yeah, he was already in Point Break.
Oh.
he
But
was
he hadn't
already a
done
big
Speed
star.
yet, has he?
No,
but
Speed.
I feel like
is after.
Speed was his like launch.
Oh, I
like,
agree. Speed
even though
was.
Point Break was like his first like big.
He already
role.
made Point Break. He already made Bill and Ted 3 years.
Oh,
He was in. He already made Bill and Ted's 2 the year before. He had already been
Oh.
Bill and Ted twice. And the year before this, he did My Own Private Idaho.
Yeah, I
which
was
is
gonna
very-
say when was My Own Private Idaho. So
it
that was
the year
before.
this. So
Okay.
he went straight from literally it's Point Break, Bill and Ted 2, My Own Private Idaho, and then he slides straight into Dracula.
That's so funny.
That's amazing.
That's so
It
crazy.
feels like an
because
amazing combination of everything, though.
it does.
And Winona Ryder was a really big star at this time.
Yeah, she
Yes.
was.
Tim Burton made her a big star with.
Yes,
In '88, she had Beetlejuice. Then in
Yes.
that same year, she was in Heathers.
Yes, she was. I watched both of those.
Do you want to fill in the rest about Winona Ryder, Emma?
Well, I didn't watch Edward Scissorhands in my marathon, but I've seen it before. That's before Dracula, right?
Which one?
Yes, that is
Edward
definitely-
Scissorhands.
Yeah,
And
Edward
then-
Scissorhands.
It's
before
it's
Dracula.
2 years before.
Yeah, and then there's another one, but I can't remember. I feel like-
Mermaids.
Yeah, that's it. Me and my mom are gonna watch that tonight, so I'm excited.
Yeah, I don't know what that. movie's
I haven't
gonna-
seen it before.
Is
but
she wait, mermaids?
yeah,
No, it's a
Mermaid?
drama.
it's a drama.
Okay,
It's a comedy drama. Cher plays her.
Yeah, Cher's in it.
interesting.
Exactly why I'm so excited to watch it. But you know, she was a star at that point.
Yeah,
Like,
she was a
very
big star.
famous.
This movie was sort of her idea. She brought the script to Francis Ford Coppola. She had read it,
Oh,
Really?
interesting.
and she was
I heard she was gonna do Godfather Part 3, but she dropped out to do Edward Scissorhands.
exhaustion.
What is that? What do you mean by exhaustion? Like she was
It's
too
always like
tired?
drugs. Whenever it's like, oh, they had exhaustion, it was like the director had agreed to meet her after because she withdrew late. She was going to play Pacino's daughter in Part 3, which is a crucial part of the movie. And
I've
she
not
pulled
seen.
out
Oh,
due to
interesting.
nervous exhaustion,
Oh,
which may or may
Okay.
not be why. Madonna
Okay.
was too old. Madonna wanted to play the role. She was too old. And eventually, Francis Ford Coppola decided to cast his daughter, who's awful in it.
Nice.
nice.
But yeah.
Love that.
And Anthony Hopkins was in a big upswing because he had
Mhm.
just won the Oscar for Silent Lambs,
Mm.
which was
Mhm.
a huge movie.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's an
Then he
understatement.
he was in Chaplin,
Oh,
the same movie. He's like he's in a small role in that. And then he was nominated. Was he nominated the next year?
For what?
He was in a movie called Howard's End. He was not
Oh, I've
nominated.
heard about
He's
that.
the lead role.
Mhm.
Emma Thompson wins the Oscar for that, and he's in it.
Oh,
He gets nominated again the year after Dracula for a movie called The Remains of the Day, which also
Wow.
has Emma Thompson in it.
yeah. I love Emma Thompson.
Emma.
He's
Emma.
in Legends of the Fall with Brad Pitt. a couple
yes,
years
Legends of the
after Dracula,
Fall.
which is the movie that every dad has seen because it's always on cable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's just in this weird career where he's like in his mid 50s, like late 50s, early 60s, and suddenly he's getting all these. He plays Richard Nixon,
Oh, really?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
in
he does
Nixon,
that.
which is
Mhm.
like a 3-hour long movie
Yeah.
about Nixon. He gets nominated for an Oscar for that. He makes a movie called The Edge, where he and Alec Baldwin get stranded in the woods and have to kill a bear.
Okay, The Revenant.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
It's like the Bro Revenant.
Oh, I
Like
like,
a buddy cop
Revenant.
Revenant.
I'm sold.
No, because they're like they hate each other.
Oh, okay. I see.
Oh. That's funny.
I hope I haven't hijacked by talking about Anthony Hopkins.
Nice.
No, I love this.
No, but
He was-
Anthony Hopkins has done so many things.
He has. He's been so much.
He gets nominated again for Amistad, which is a
Mm.
Spielberg movie starring McConaughey, young McConaughey,
Wow.
Oh,
What
yeah,
year is this?
McConaughey.
Baby
97.
McConaughey.
97.
Interesting.
And then he continues to be giant, and he's second billed in a movie that I have talked about at length about how good it is, The Mask of Zorro,
Oh yeah, you have talked about that.
in which Anthony Hopkins plays a Spaniard.
Yes.
Oh, interesting. How is his performance in Mask of Zorro?
He's amazing. It's so
It's
good,
amazing.
but it's like stupid because he's a Welsh and he's not at all Spanish.
That's so
But,
funny.
But he's great in it. He's got a good wig. Literally, the billing above the poster, above the title is Antonio Banderas, Anthony Hopkins, Mask of
Mask of
Zorro.
Zorro.
Because they both play Zorro in it.
Oh right, I think I remember that. I watched Mask of Zorro a long time ago.
Yeah, same. It's been so. I feel like I
not
was
seen it.
very, very young when I saw it.
And that's sort of like when he was a big,
Yeah,
sort of like draw.
the
He makes-
'90s was jam packed for him. Just so
That's
much.
cool.
hmm I mean, nowadays, I don't know. He's just supporting roles. And Westworld, I guess, he was amazing that first season.
Now he's a pope.
Now he's a
He's a
pope.
pope.
He's my Pope.
Still being nominated for the Pope.
Was he good in that movie?
He's
I
great.
liked it.
He is. Yeah.
But Jonathan Pryce is the star.
Oh, I
Mhm.
agree. Also, that movie is so like it's so like steady paced kind of that I feel very like peaceful watching it. Just very like yeah.
Oh, like a comfort type of movie?
Mm-hmm.
I could see that. It is very.
Yeah. Castaway.
That's kind of like that's oddly how I feel about Marriage Story too.
Interesting.
Yeah, Marriage Story.
No,
Interesting.
You know what my
That's
comfort
I don't
movie is? My
I
comfort
just
movie is
love
Sicario.
domestic dispute.
Oh yeah, I know that.
Sicario is my comfort movie. And that is like
Interesting.
a disgusting movie, but I just love watching it and makes me
Yeah.
feel at ease.
I have the
My
4K,
comfort
do you?
movie is.
I don't have the
Jurassic
4K.
Park.
I don't have a 4K television or anything to watch 4K stuff on.
Oh, I do.
Aw.
Hey.
Comfort movies. Dracula's
comfort
not my
movie-
comfort.
I
Yeah,
could
I
see
hope
it.
it's not.
No,
Dracula is an experience.
I was gonna say Dracula is very similar to What We Do in the Shadows. And JJ, you sent that thing where
Mhm.
it's like his role was very inspired. Which one was it? Oh,
The
Vladislav.
Impaler, yeah, the
was Jimmy-
Impaler.
Vladislav was very inspired by that. But the whole movie is very, I can see so many allusions to like that Dracula. I feel like a lot of the style of all of the characters is very heavily based upon it.
hmm
So, and that was fun. And I love What We Do in the Shadows. So,
Yeah, I could tell this was the movie that they were referencing a lot of during.
yeah. Oh, for sure. Like in very subtle ways and then in very obvious ways, like with Vladislav, like his orgy scene at the beginning of What We Do in the Shadows,
Yeah, you're right. Oh,
directly based off of this
I can
Dracula
see-
movie.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah,
I know there's just so many things, and I love that. And I feel that a lot of the characters' mannerisms in What We Do in the Shadows are so based off of it.
All right, so just any like, well, I guess we could do our last segment, which is like nitpicks, like things we didn't like. About the
Yeah,
movie.
let's go for it.
I mean, I guess I'll just like I just mentioned the romances. It didn't vibe with me at first because I always saw him as the villain, so I saw him as like trying to steal him from Keanu, steal Mia
Yeah.
from Keanu. But I feel
agree.
like a rewatch will fix this. But for my first viewing, it was just like kind of off-putting
Mhm.
to me.
I felt that way too, but also because I felt like it didn't really establish enough the fact that she was remembering their romance from a different life,
Yeah.
like from a past life. It felt like she felt some strong connection to this new character, but not like to being like a past lover to this person. And so for that, I think that was like the main thing for me why the love story didn't through. Like it just felt so rushed and quickly, and like it quickly happened, and I felt like a lot of other parts of the movie were also very rushed and just not established, and like random things would just happen instead of like having smooth transitions and things too. But also I felt like it kind of fell into the stylism of it a little too.
Yeah, it's kind of
So-
like reflective of Dracula's powers being kind of random.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
movie also being kind of random.
that's
Like
true.
that werewolf, I totally thought that was a different guy. At first,
I know,
and
I
then
did
they flash,
too.
It's like, oh, it's Gary Oldman.
It took me till like 30 minutes before the movie was about to end, and then I was like, wait, he was the werewolf? What? Huh?
Yeah, his whole relationship with Lucy was kind of confusing to me.
It was a little
Yeah.
confusing. That was a little all over the place, I feel like.
I think it's him just trying to spread his power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also because he looks at Lucy and is like, I'm going to be a married man soon for all eternity.
Oh my god.
But also, I felt no here because like that whole Lucy subplot kind of like supports my whole villain take because it's like in a
Yeah.
monster movie where like the first girl dies, so you're trying to save the second one.
Yeah,
dying
it's
as
really
well.
weird.
So-
I feel like Yeah, that is interesting, huh?
That's why it was like, oh, so like that's the first girl who dies, and then they're trying to save the final girl, which is
Yeah.
Winona type of deal.
Right.
I agree.
The
I feel
final
like
girl.
the
Trying to
The
bring
final
a
girl.
slasher movie crap into this.
No, that's what it is. It's like a horror slasher movie. That's what I saw it, because it's like a monster movie.
I
'cause it's
agree.
Dracula.
I feel like, yeah, on the surface it's like that. I also feel like a second watch would make it a little bit more enjoyable because you kind of know where it's gonna go, so it's easier to know what to actually pay attention
Knowing that
to.
Keanu really is just a supporting character.
He is exactly, and that's so
Yeah.
it's hard to
He's a
tell
beta.
at first.
He's a beta.
I feel like my main
I mean,
complaint-
like it's Winona Ryder, so like why not?
I love Winona. My main complaint is I feel like but that's not really a complaint. I would say I wouldn't really take the movie I don't take the movie seriously, which is kind of a complaint,
Interesting.
but
But
also
yeah,
not a
yeah.
complaint. Because like I can watch the movie and I can enjoy it by just throwing it on and watching it with like a group of people, have a fun time. But I don't think I would ever like watch it and be like, "Oh, cinematic masterpiece."
Yeah.
It's not one of those movies, which I don't think is a bad thing, but I don't know.
There's
I feel like
definitely
just to
a
bring
lane
it
for
up.
movies like that.
Exactly,
There's
and I feel
yeah.
like it is only in that category for me. It's just in the watch for fun type of movie.
Mhm.
Because it is so fun in a way.
It is, yeah, no, it's silly, it's great. I love and all the other like small aspects that we talked about, like production design and stuff. It's really cool to watch. So, yeah, that would be my main thing.
Ronan, what are your nitpicks? Yeah,
I definitely have
is
nitpicks.
it
The ending-
is it Keanu? Oh, the ending. What's?
I
feel like the ending
with
makes
the
sense
ending.
if it's like
I
a
have prob-
romance,
I
right?
agree.
I
Because
think
like
I think my main problem is that I think the pacing is weird. I think it's too short at 2 hours and 7 minutes because of how much there is they try and get through.
Mhm.
I think that the ending is weird in that it focuses a little too much on Dracula and Mina's story at the very end, and literally
feel
it's
that.
like cuts off his head, pan
Yeah.
up to the ceiling, directed by Francis Ford Coppola
Yeah.
in very quick succession. And I know that was a choice they made
Mhm.
because test screenings didn't like Mina ending up with Keanu.
Interesting.
interesting.
But
Wow.
I feel that I would have liked. I think a coda that Van Helsing should have narrated a coda of some kind to wrap things up because I think it ends too abruptly.
Mm.
It
It
does
ends
end
on-
really abruptly.
That would bookmark the entire movie too, by starting with the narration and ending
Mhm.
with.
Yeah, he narrates the beginning and he narrates other parts of it. I
Yeah.
feel that there are other parts where I just wish they could have focused on some more. Just like I do feel Jonathan, Keanu does have sort of a shitty.
Yeah.
That isn't his fault, and I think
Mhm.
that the Jonathan character kind of has to be weak.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the ending. I think Keanu's accent is bad, and I think the reason they cast him wasn't very good. But I do like Keanu, just his presence in the movie.
His presence ages well.
It
Like,
does.
it's good to look back and knowing that Keanu's in this movie.
I know. I love Keanu. Oh. Yeah, that was
All
definitely.
right. So, any final thoughts on Dracula? I really enjoyed this recommendation.
Yeah,
I'm
thank
happy
you. That was so cool.
I have this logged.
Yeah. I agree. It's something I would probably never have watched if someone hadn't if we were kind of
Yeah,
forced
exactly.
to watch it, which sounds bad, but I
It
mean,
sounds very bad, Emma.
no, but it's not supposed to sound bad because
It sounds downright awful.
no. I mean, no.
Ronan,
but-
you've completely thrown her off. What
I
have you
know.
done?
No,
I'm
but if
so
someone
sorry.
hadn't recommended it, I probably wouldn't have watched it. Not because I didn't want to, but because I've never heard of it before.
Mm-mm. Yeah.
But I'm glad I watched it, and I'd seen the poster before for it, and I'd seen a clip, I believe, of Gary Oldman as Dracula, but I just never put it together, and I'm kind of glad that I've seen it now. It was fun.
I'm glad I've seen it too, because I think it just adds variety in the types of movies I watch too,
Yeah,
typically,
for
and
sure.
it adds variety.
There's not
to
a whole
these
lot of
podcasts,
movies like
too.
this one.
No,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
very
for
true.
sure.
I love it. So unique.
Yeah, I like
I think
that.
it's when we look at the cast list and even the director, of all their filmographies, it's not the one that like jumps out
Yeah.
at
No,
you,
it's so
considering how
odd.
talented and how like accomplished everyone in this film is.
Mhm.
It's just a hidden gem in there, which is really
Yeah,
nice.
like the black sheep of all of their careers.
Yes.
It's
I
just
think
there.
it's definitely after Apocalypse Now, Coppola's career kind of sucked for a bit.
Mm.
He's made some pretty awful movies, and this is one of my favorites. I've definitely seen this. I've seen this movie more times. Been more interested in it recently. Some of the Godfathers, just because I find more stuff thematically resonant with me personally. Because sometimes I watch The Godfather, or I think about The Godfather, and I think, these movies are, of course, among the best ever made, and they are better than Dracula. But I find Dracula much more interesting to talk about because it's
I agree.
just weird. It's just
Yeah.
such a
Yeah.
bizarre
100%.
creation.
Yes, and I love that. We need more movies like that, I feel. Just like movies. I don't know. It's just great.